All right, Pickleball Nation. This is Scott Golden, the Golden Boy. I'm here on Monday afternoon. I've got a great surprise for you guys. This was unexpected, unplanned. Me and my good friend Don Stanley decided that we were going to do a rules and referee discussion live for the Pickleball Forum and the Pickleball people. And I think this is going to be fantastic. But we decided to go ahead and speed this thing up and go live today because uh, Webby from the Eddie and Webby show posted a video on the forum recently, about 2 hours ago, probably. And it just sparked in me the idea that I want to bring Don Stanley on sooner than later and have him talk about some of the things that are going on right now in the world of pickleball in regards to rules, referees, and everything in that nature. So Don is an expert referee in our sport. He's certified. He is the head referee for the PPA Pro Tour in 2020, which currently is on hold. But when it comes back around and we're back in the flow of things, he's going to be the head referee. And so I am excited to bring him on with me. And I'm going to do that just shortly. But I also have a story to tell everybody about Don after I bring him on, and I think he'll appreciate it. So without further ado, here's my good friend and PPA certified referee, expert, expert everything, Don Stanley. What's up, Mr. Stanley?
How you doing, Scott? That's a very great intro, and kudos back to you, man. I think I'm not going to waste people's time, but I think you're a man of a lot of integrity, and I appreciate it, and I'm honored to be on with you today. So hopefully we can help some people. So.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal here. The ultimate goal is not for us to debate and go back and forth about our opinions on rules and stuff necessarily. It's about to educate people. This is about you bringing some understanding and maybe some clarity to some confusion. There's not much in this world that gets me more excited than having a rules and referee discussion with my good buddy Don Stanley. So I'm pumped.
Ditto.
That's awesome. Well, before we get too deep into all this, I want to tell a quick story about Don. And for everybody watching, whether you're watching it live right now or you watch this on replay, my first experience with Don Stanley was March 3rd, 2017. It was my very first tournament that I ever played in. And I decided to drive 3 hours north because at the time I lived in Birmingham, Alabama. I decided to drive 3 hours north to play in Don's tournament. And Don I could tell without even meeting this guy, I could tell Don was a very thorough and detail-oriented person because he sent out no less than 100 emails prior to the tournament, making sure that everybody that was involved with his tournament knew exactly what was going to happen, exactly what was going to unfold. And he even went in great detail about, how many minutes he expected each match to go and how he expected it to be done by a certain time. And I thought, man, this guy's fantastic. He's just giving us all the intel. So I go to the tournament, and this guy, him and his wife Candy, set up a table for the people at the tournament. And this thing had everything from Chex Mix to apples and oranges. I think it had a fruit snack section. It had granola bars. Man,
Peanut butter jelly.
Get peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I think he had like a salad bar where you could get like a Caesar salad, maybe some other stuff, some croutons. I mean, Don, incredible the links that you went to. And that's how I knew that you were going to be a great rules and referee, rules commentator and referee.
Well, let me just say real quickly about that. Many people maybe don't know that my son Logan, who was 19, he passed away the year before. And so it was called the Logan Stanley Memorial Tournament. And I actually think that year leading up to that was honestly, it was a lot of therapy for me. It gave me something to do and attention to detail. And, if it had my son's name attached to it, it meant a lot to me. So I wanted to make sure it was done well. So yeah, I did put in a lot of effort. If you remember even, I wanted to make it so fair for everyone, right? That any round robin brackets, some matches went to 15, some to 17, 19, or 21, depending on how many teams were in your bracket. Because I wanted everybody to play pretty much the same amount of points. So, yeah, that was it was in his honor, and it was enjoyable. Yeah,
I loved it. That you absolutely spoiled me for my very first tournament because I went to a few after that, and I thought, Where's the freaking granola bars? Where's the apples and oranges? Where's the peanut butter and jelly sandwich? But no, that was my first experience with you. And I've had so many good, memorable tournament experiences at your tournaments. You didn't happen to put it on this year because of some scheduling conflicts, I believe, is what you told me, and maybe some other things going on. But was very disappointed that I wasn't going to be able to attend again this year. But if you get a chance, guys, play in Don Stanley's tournament. Definitely.
We'll treat you well. I want you to go away thinking that Logan Stanley tournament was a good one because it's in his honor. So, he's up there watching me, so I got to do a good job. So
you got it. You got to perform well. That's right.
That's right.
Well, let's move forward now. I just had to tell that story because that sets up this whole premise of why do I bring Don Stanley on here versus, anybody else? And the reason, not only because I'm friends with Don and I know his integrity and his character and what he's all about, but also this man has posted pictures of himself on a Friday night reading the rule book while he's sipping on some wine or some coffee or something. So I know this guy's done his homework. You know what I mean?
You know what? That's a good point. Just want to share this if I can. This is my, 2018, but if I'm just going to flip through it, all the notes and highlights and things I wrote in, probably couldn't see that too well, but I'm never without my rule book and handbook and case book, and I'm daily. And I mean, not at first, but if I'm driving down the road and I hear a rules question, I'll sometimes pull off, or sometimes I won't, and just get right on it and answer it. But yeah. And I'll say this: I'll be transparent here. At first, I'll be transparent. At first, early on, maybe it was some trying to show my rules knowledge, and I've gone through that beginning stage, and now it's just I want us to strive towards consistency for the players. Okay, the more we can be consistent, and the more the players know the rules, and let's say that 2 weeks from now, whenever we get back to playing, somebody is out on the court and they have an issue. If they say, "Oh, you know what? I heard that thing with Scott and Don last week. Oh, yeah, that is a fault." If it keeps controversy down, that's a good byproduct of knowing the rules. So consistency.
Absolutely. Listen, and there's not many people out there in the world of pickleball that can claim that they've read the rule book 150 times like Don Stanley, however, and highlighted all the important parts. But I think it is important to note that if you're a player and you want to compete in tournaments, you should sit down with the rule book and at least read over some of the high points in the rule book, like some of the most important rules to know when you're on the court, not just so that you can sound knowledgeable and like you're a know-it-all, but to understand when there's a situation in a game that comes up, you don't always have to go run and get the tournament director and maybe bring in a ref. You will know and be confident enough to know and stand behind what your rule remarks are, that you don't, they're going to buy into what you're selling because you're so confident and you do know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's true. Even things like what questions can I ask when I'm the server? I'm in the right position, knowing things like that, what you can and can't ask, or more importantly, what the ref can and cannot answer. The more knowledge you have, I have no doubt, will probably win you some rallies, in a tournament. So, and I guess the bigger thing is to keep down controversy. If everybody knows that doing X, let's say crossing the plane, is a fault, if everybody knows that, and when it happens and it gets called, then hopefully it keeps down controversy. So yes, and I have, definitely win you some rallies, have no doubt.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Don. Scott Lippitz is more widely known as the Pickleball Forum troll online, but one thing I will say about that guy is he always harps on reading the rules, knowing the rules. That way you're prepared. You're not caught off guard. Or when you see two teams arguing about something that neither team knows what they're talking about, they will ultimately usually end up redoing the point. Right. And that's okay in some scenarios. I agree. In some scenarios, it makes sense. But if somebody just knows what they're talking about and knows the rules properly, you can, like you said, cut down on a lot of confusion. So that's today's talk and discussion is not about Scott Golden and Don Stanley. Today's discussion is about Don Stanley, a certified ref and PPA head referee, discussing with me how to be a better player by being informed, maybe clearing up some confusion about rules that we've seen, And you know some of the hot buttons. Let's get into it. Let's start with the one that we saw on the video earlier today from Webby, from the Eddie and Webby show. Talk about that. You just take the lead.
Okay, so there was a video out, and this will probably be a little bit lengthy, and I'm going to say right up front. Let me say right up front to everybody. When I share rules, or here's how this is to be applied, or here's the proper ruling on this. Really, it comes down to one of four categories. Either it's black and white in the rule book, and I can point you right to it, and it's undisputable. The second thing is, if it's a little gray area, I can say, well, I've emailed or talked to the rules committee, and here's what they ruled. The third area is, that's still a little gray, but most certified refs I've talked with feel it should be this way. Or the fourth point would be, you know what, this is strictly my opinion. So it'll usually be in one of those four categories, because I want you to trust what I say. And at the very bottom of that is, I'm smart enough to know that there are things I still don't know, but it'll be my opinion or whatever. So with the video today, it was doubles, mixed doubles. There was really two scenarios, and everyone finally agreed that the first one was not a fault. So team hits a ball over, it bounces. Okay, so it bounced, so there's no issue about a non-volley zone fault, right? So it bounces, and the gentleman, let me change the camera angle here. He fell down on his knees to reach in and hit it. So he hits the ball after it bounced. Okay, no problem, no big deal. And then his paddle is resting in the zone. Okay, it's resting in the zone. Now, I was looking on my phone screen, so we'll just get into it here. Then he's resting it on the ground. No fault so far, right? That's totally fine to do. Then they hit the ball back over to him. Of course, it's in the air, which is susceptible. It's going to be a volley, probably. Let me say this. Rule 9B2 says, I'll just read it real quick. If the paddle touches the non-volley zone during the volley motion, before or after making contact with the ball, it's a fault. So just one thing aside, we all know that if the volley motion, let's just start with that. What is the volley motion? I'm going to back up a bit. So if I'm standing here, the act of volleying is determined as the swing, the volley, and the momentum from it. It's really three parts. So if I'm standing here at the zone, when does my volley motion swing start? I think it starts when you move your arm and get ready to swing, okay? And I know sometimes people are doing this, so that might be hard to judge. But if you're standing still, and when does your volley swing start? Well, it starts when you move that paddle and swing to hit the ball, right? Okay. So Rule 9, let me also go over. Sorry. If the paddle touches the non-volley zone during the volley motion. So that would mean to me during the swing. We all know that if you swing at the ball and your paddle scrapes, my arm is the zone, and it scrapes the zone, okay, drags in the zone, and then you lift up and hit the ball, that's a fault. Your paddle touched the zone, dragging the zone, hit the zone during the volley motion, and there's movement, okay, motion, and then you volley the ball, that's the fault. Here's where it comes down, and I'm going to say there's probably 50-50 on this side of it. But here's how I would rule that. We all agree that if it drug, and I think people with bigger computer screens and better eyes than me say that his paddle did drag a little bit. So if his paddle drug in the zone, then that was a fault. But let's go beyond that and look at this issue. Let's just say for this conversation, his paddle was resting in the zone after he had hit that ball that had bounced, okay? Totally fine and legal up to this point. Let me center here. So now the question is this. When does his volley swing start? Okay, think about that. When does the volley swing start? I contend that it starts the minute he lifts off the zone. Okay, and let's go back up on that. I'm going to try to go in this pretty deep. Right now, in real time, my paddle is resting in the zone. Let's say they keep hitting it back and forth to my partner. I can rest in the zone all day long. Not a problem. But if the ball's hit to me in the air, which is susceptible to a volley, right? When does my volley swing start? I contend that it starts the moment you move the paddle. Okay? So the moment I move the paddle is the exact same moment that it's not in contact or touching the zone. Okay. Now, folks, I realize this is a razor thin dividing line. Basically, when does one action end and another one start? Okay. It's a razor thin dividing line. And I understand that. I asked my wife before this. I said, how do you feel about this? She said, I can see both sides. With that being said, I contend that if there's no dragging movement, again, once you lift the paddle is when your volley motion starts. And coincidentally, it's also when you're not touching the zone. And so for me, as a ref, that gives me enough basis to not call a fault. Okay? I'll just say this. I think some refs look for ways to call a fault. Now, I'm sure Scott and I are going to talk about a real famous subject with he and I. Sometimes I don't have a desire to call a fault, but if it's a rule and I have to, then I have to. But I think there's also ways where refs will look to call a fault. I'm probably on the other end of that. If I have a basis that I believe in my mind to not call a fault, then that's all I need. So for me, since there's no movement or no dragging, the moment the volley motion started was the exact same moment he was not in contact with the zone, so therefore no volley zone fault. That's how I saw that video this morning, although once I've got on my big computer screen, I think he did drag it, but that's the subject I feel about if you don't drag it.
So even the slightest, like the slightest movement backwards or sideways is considered a fault because you're starting the backswing?
You know, I guess we're down to that point of, you know, the rule says if you touch the zone during the volley motion, okay? So I guess now that if you start and drag it, let me change the angle. If you drag it a little bit, that little span of time right there, even though it's, what, I don't know, 50 milliseconds, that little drag would be, I think, the basis for during your volley motion. Now, I'm saying completely different is if you lift straight up, okay,
right,
there's no dragging. But that little bit of dragging, if it's, I don't know, 100 milliseconds, that's a span of time which your paddle was touching the zone during your volley motion. And I would say, yes, a ref is justified in calling a fault on that. But in this instant where if it was resting and he lifted, I would say no, because you didn't drag. And the moment you lifted, started your swing, you weren't in touch with the zone. Here, let's say for 100 milliseconds, you were in touch, you were touching the zone. So I definitely think that is a fault according to the rule. But again, lifting off, there's no dragging, there's no gap of time. I would say that for me as a ref, that's enough for me not to call a fault.
Absolutely. And in real time, that's extremely tough probably for you to distinguish that. So I thought it was a clean play, but there was a lot of controversy on whether he dragged it or not. And listen, the big thing is we have slow motion. We have the ability to watch it over and over on a replay. So therefore it helps there.
And let's say this, from the camera angle that I saw once I got on my big computer screen, it did look like the paddle went a little bit sideways, okay, which would indicate maybe dragging. But I'll see if you can see this. What if he raised it and then went sideways? You know, how are we sure there wasn't a little bit of gap under that paddle? Which to me is the same thing of the moment he lifted off, he's not in contact with the zone. So let's say he barely lifted off. If we had a 4K, you know, high def camera, he lifted and slid sideways without touching, then to me that's enough reason in a court of law to, you know, not call a fault.
Absolutely. Don, this is super crazy that I'm having to do this at the moment. I'm going to let you take over for a little bit here and go into some stuff. I have to take care of something pretty important at the moment that just came up. So I want you to jump into some new stuff. One thing I want you to touch on while I'm MIA for a little bit is the new PPA approved thing that you worked very hard to get approved, which was the 2 referee system that you have been really pushing hard to get. And I'm 100% behind you on that. So go ahead and take that over. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah, this has been a big passion of mine, and I'm just I want to be so respectful of everyone's time watching. even though there's not a whole lot to do in this country right now. But just real quick, I want to tell you why it started. For me, it started because I beat myself up when I miss calls. I do, because I take what I do as a professional, and I take it with a lot of integrity and professionalism. I've been an umpire in other sports, and so that's what prompted me liking this. So this past year at TOC, all right, it was mixed doubles gold. Okay, it was Ben and Jesse against Simone and Kyle. Okay, and think of it, I'm one ref on my side of the net, and we're supposed to stand directly in line with the net, which is good. We're going to touch on that later, I'm sure, with Scott. There were several times when Jessie was right here near me, and she would do a backhand Ernie attempt. Okay, so basically her back was to me. Okay, I could see the back of her body, the back of her legs, and of course I'm trying to watch the feet, you know, if she's hitting the zone. But I couldn't see, because of my viewing angle, I couldn't see the front of her feet. Okay, and later that night when I watched the video, oh yeah, there was one time I definitely missed one where the front of her feet was touching the line right when she hit it, and a second one was even close that I maybe missed too. But ironically, think of the viewing angle. I'm back here, she's right in front of me to my left. On the diagonal opposite end from her basically is Kyle, who has a great viewing angle to the front of her feet, you know. And so Kyle's, you know, saying, hey, she stepped on the zone, and doggone it, he has a better viewing angle than I did. You know, I wish I would have, my friend Mark Pfeiffer was over there watching. I wish I would have just exploited Rule 13C and used my own judgment to pull Mark in on the other side of that net, because quite frankly, Kyle had a better viewing angle of Jessie's front of her feet than I did. Okay, will not mention names here, but I've talked with a couple refs, and they said, you know what? If you can see the back of her feet, then you can know where the front of her feet are. And I don't know if the implication was I should call a fault because I'm assuming the front of her feet or foot is touching the zone. I will not do that, and don't think a ref should do that. But it was very frustrating that I couldn't see the front of her feet. I mean, I wanted to stick my head basically over top of the playing area just to see her feet, but I couldn't. That'd be in the way. So this prompted me to say, you know what? When I watched the video that night, I'm thinking, wow, that camera on the other side of the net has a better viewing angle than I do. You know, I would love to have another ref to cover the blocked viewing angles. Okay. So I'll just say this. Let me say this. I've been a big proponent of using two refs. I want to say this to all refs. I love you. I applaud you. We go work. We go in the hole to work these events, okay? None of us are making a living off this. I took, when I was working at a church, I took all 3 weeks of my vacation to fly out and go to these tournaments because I love doing it, okay? So I'm all for refs. So I want to say this. Using the two-ref system is not in any way an indication or a detriment that one ref can't do the job. But here's what I'll stand on solidly. There are some times when a ref is just blocked. There's no way around it, and there's no debating it. There are some times when a ref is just blocked. That's a good example for me. I was blocked from seeing the front of her feet. Another example is this. Let's say on the far end away from me, team on my right, the player poaches a shot, right? Then he's running along, trying to tiptoe and not step on the NVZ. So I've got to watch his running along the NVZ, right? Well, he's already blasted a shot back, and the opponent's already hit that back. That opponent could have stepped in the zone when he hit it back. But I have to watch the poacher, watch his feet, make sure it doesn't step in the zone. You cannot watch 8 tennis shoes at the same time to make a precise call if somebody touches the line a quarter of an inch. You cannot. No one can. And even with two refs, we're not going to catch everything, okay? But it is there to help the opposite side viewing angles, which I think are very important. So at the Wolf tournament in St. Louis last year, at the Wichita Franklin Pickleball Masters tournament, and also at the PPA, every tournament now, we have allowed for the pro and senior pro medal matches to use the second ref, okay? So let's talk about that. It's now been, Scott said, approved by the PPA. It's actually the USAPA is now said that it is an allowable option for people to do. So let's get into the mechanics of that. The first ref, the main ref, whatever you want to call them, is still the ref just like they always were, okay? It's just another ref on the other side of the net to help watch all the angles that the main ref would watch. I will say this, we don't assign one ref to watch one side and one ref to watch the other. Both refs can watch anything they want to watch, okay? And there are times, so I'll give you a couple examples. There are times when, the famous picture I put up of Lucy Kovalova, she went across to do an Ernie. Her foot was on the line, blatantly on the line. If she would have hit the ball, that would have been a fault. And Peter Clapham had his eyes backed right down on her feet where he was supposed to watch. I was on the other side of the net, saw her arm cross over the plane of net. Now, I know some people don't like that rule, but that's not the point. The point is, Peter was doing his job. Having the second ref is able to see other angles. At the Mesa tournament, PPA, one player hit a volley shot, hit the net, dribbled over, and hit the bar for a replay. The main ref was watching the player to see if they had touched the zone. Okay, so it's just another way a ref can have some help in watching viewing angles. Okay, it's going to come out in the referee handbook, but basically it's this. If the second ref sees the non-volley zone fault, then they just call it. Okay, and it's very effective when both refs call it at the same time because there's no debate from a player when both refs just go bam, bam, fault. If a player wants to appeal a call, they always go to the main ref first. If the main ref says, I was blocked or I didn't have a good angle, and they appeal to the second ref, then of course, if the second ref clearly saw it, they can make a ruling. Okay, so all appeals go to the main ref. Now, at times, if a play is close to the second ref and the player sees it, they'll naturally just look at the second ref and go, hey, ref, did you see it? And that's when because I love being a second ref more than a main ref, and y'all, I love to ref more than chocolate. So you say, hey, you got to go to the main ref first, okay? So that's all basically it is. It's another set of eyes. Also, too, it's very helpful. After a rally's over and the ref has marking the score sheet or changing the clip, turn it over, the second ref is there also to keep an eye on things for thrown paddles, purposely breaking a ball. It's just another set of helpful eyeballs to cover viewing angles that are sometimes blocked by people. Now, does that ensure every fault will be called? No, because we're human and nobody's perfect. But it so increases your chances of getting the calls correct, which is the main goal. Another thing, too, if you're a ref and listening, and a tournament director, I would seriously hope you would consider implementing this, because I'm going to go a little bit now, try to be quick here, of the benefits of a ref. At Mesa and also at Wichita, when I'm the head ref, I never put myself on as the main ref for the medal matches because I think it's a way of saying thank you to the other refs for coming. So this allowed me, and I'm going to say this term loosely, but this allows maybe to put a lesser experienced ref on to get some good pro medal match experience, which they need in a big venue. But you're also there, let's say the more experienced ref there as well. I had so many refs come and say, Don, just having you on the other side of the net gave me a calm and a peace where I could focus on doing my job, okay? Many benefits with that. Another one is this. Whenever there's a timeout, both refs, we would come to the center of the net and talk a little bit. And I found as a way to build up and encourage the main ref. Say, you know what? Hey, great job. You got a great cadence. You're in control of the match. Great call over there. Just pump them up and build them up and build up that confidence, which helps them, I believe, do a better job during the match, which is good for the players. Okay. It also is a sense of camaraderie too. There's a couple times where, let's say, tensions get high and there's a couple arguments between players and refs. It's nice when you go on a timeout and you walk to the center of the net. It's nice to see another person there who likes you, quite frankly, because say if all players are mad at you and the spectators think you blew it, it's just nice to have a comforting face there of somebody who likes you. So there are a ton of benefits in camaraderie, teamwork, accuracy, increased accuracy in the calls, ton of benefits that I really wish people would explore and try the two-ref system. And I also think I do need to touch on this for a moment. Let's talk about line judges, for example, for a minute. And I want to say this right up front. As much as I love refs, I applaud line judges. They're the ones that stay there working in the hot sun, And a lot of times they don't even get paid, okay? So I applaud them greatly. But I will say this. When it comes to the pro level matches, I think we have put line judges in a very hard and very unfair position, okay? And I'll explain that by saying this. Think about this for a second. If you're a player and a ball comes over to your side, you don't have to make a call. You can just, if you don't make a call, the ball's presumed in, okay? So be it. If you're a ref and they appeal to you, you don't have to make a call. You can say, hey, I was watching the zone if you were, or you could say, I didn't see it clear enough to overrule, all right? But think about this. The line judge is the one person who does not have that luxury of just not making a call. And let me give you an example. Most of the time we use 4 line judges, okay? So the sideline judges are usually at least 8 or 10 feet behind the baseline. Sometimes they're sitting in the court, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're even behind another chain link fence. So you're 10 feet, let's say, behind the baseline, and a ball hit over to the far corner, okay? And so you're, let's see, 44 plus 10 feet. You're 54 feet away and maybe looking through an actual pickleball net, and it goes to the back corner, and the player is back there, and they don't hit it because they're sure it's out, and all of a sudden everybody looks to you. Everybody looks to you to make a call. Well, the whole world is looking at you, and you have to make a call. And that's a lot of pressure when you're looking 54 feet away, and a sliver can make the difference. That's a lot of pressure. And I'll say this. With that said, I think I have seen line judges in pro matches cause more problems than they have helped because we have put them in a very difficult and hard position. Okay, so I think at the pro level, they are so used to calling their own calls, their own line calls, and there's so much respect level at the pro level. For example, I'll give you a great one here. At Mesa, I believe it was mixed. Yeah, there was a shot where Ben and Simone, okay, Simone was, I think it was the bronze medal match, playing against the Newmans. Simone was running to go to a sideline to get a ball, okay? Now, for me personally, I don't trust my eyes when I'm running. Anyway, here's what happened. She runs over to the sideline. The ball bounces. She calls it out, okay? The Newmans immediately go, oh, no, come on, that was in. That was way in, Simone. Come on, that was in. Simone immediately, seeing their reaction, I guess I'm being a mind reader here, Simone immediately changes her call along with Ben, just by seeing, I think, the Newmans, honey. Sorry, my wife's back there needing something.
Holden is wanting to know if you can see everybody's questions.
Okay, that's a question from Scott. I cannot see their question, Scott. Sorry. So Simone, seeing the reaction of the Newmans, and at that level, okay, at the pro medal match level, these are the cream of the crop, the top pros. There's so much mutual respect that they changed their call, no controversy, okay? At Mesa is the first time at the Wolf tournament and at Franklin Masters, we did use line judges, but at Mesa, we do not use line judges for the PPA, the pro and senior pro medal matches, and there wasn't not one controversy or debate or explosion or crisis. It was so stress-free. I remember driving home every night after the tournament to the motel thinking, wow, that was stress-free. Okay, so I would suggest, line judges are recommended, but they are not required. So I would suggest for tournament directors to try the 2-ref system and use no line judges for the pro matches. That would be my suggestion. So if Scott is back, I can't see questions, so I don't know what rules to talk about. But I guess he's not back yet. So
Hang on, he's communicating with me.
okay, he's actually communicating with my wife. So let's keep on talking. So that's where the whole 2-ref system came up. It's going to be coming out in the ref handbook, and all it is, it says it's an allowable option. That's all it is. So I really hope people would try that. Increased accuracy in calls for the players is the main goal. And that's the goal with the 2-ref system. And also, I would suggest you try not using line judges. I love them. I appreciate them. They work hard. They don't get paid. but we put them in a hard position. Okay, we do put them in a hard position, and I know others have strong feelings the other way about line judges and talk about, well, if we can get line judges better trained and yada yada. That's true, but I'm going to, since I'm talking now, I'm going to give you an example of nationals 2 years ago. It was a, 65 plus 3.5 gold medal match late at night. I think it was the last match of the night. They were saying that every medal match had to have line judges, especially the gold. We didn't have any line judges left, okay? I was told to I'm going to say it because it's the truth. I was told to grab somebody out of the stands. We have to have line judges, okay? So I grabbed a young lady out of the stands, okay? God love her. She was texting or doing this on her phone. I don't know if she was texting, but her thumbs were moving on her phone during the rally, okay? During the rally. Now, I had nobody else to replace her with, so I walked over and said, ma'am, please don't be on your phone, especially during a rally, okay? I'll say this about refs, and I'll say it about line judges. No ref is better than a bad ref, okay? And no line judges are better than bad line judges, okay? So in some cases, I think maybe I would say this in their defense. When it gets down to the lower skill brackets, the pros, they play the close balls, okay? They play the close balls out of respect, I think, and they just play them. There's never a whole lot of issues about, you're making bad line calls. When I get out into the lower skill levels, medal matches, that's when I start to see, okay, they called that ball out. If they appeal to me, I'm going to have to overrule. That's when I see a lot of questionable line calls. But at the pro level, they play the close ones. There's mutual respect. I just think the matches are so stress-free. Go back and watch the PPA matches for all the gold pro and senior pro medal matches. No line judges, no arguments, no debates. It was stress-free. So with that said, let me see if Scott has tried to text me. Okay. Okay, so let me see if I can see anyone's questions, live comments. Oh, wow. Wow, well, we got a lot here. Oh, my goodness. I see these now. So let me start at the very last. Detailed Don, how do you determine which matches get 2 refs in PPA tournaments? Honestly, I think the PPA, they left that up to me. So we decided pro and senior pro medal matches would use the 2 ref system. And sometimes it was late at night, and maybe we didn't do maybe the bronze senior pro, maybe, but it was just left up to me, and that's what we decided to do. Skip Sorge. So if he drags the paddle back onto the reestablished area, then lifts the paddle up, as per reestablishing your feet, then no fault. Well, that's sorry, let me shut this door. Oh, sorry. That's a good one. 9D talks about the feet reestablishing. And I've said this before, the feet seem to get their own exception. But technically, Skip, if somebody wanted to look at 9B2, it says if the paddle touches the non-volley zone during the volley motion, which is the swing, right, then it's a fault. It doesn't say unless the paddle reestablishes. It seems to me that the feet in 9D are the only part of the body that get this special exception to reestablishing outside the zone. So I would have to say, Skip, in looking at 9B2, if that paddle touched the zone and even back out of the zone, it seems to me it'd be a fault per 9B2, while 9D with the feet does make it look a little, I admit, I think there's a little bit of discrepancy in these rules that the feet get the exception. Don't want to belabor that point, but I'd probably back a ref if they said their paddle touched the zone during the volley motion swing. I called a fault. So, okay, Andrea. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Terry Hartley. That video we saw. I mean, we're so lucky to get to watch videos and back them up and slow them down and pause them. But in the ref there in the heat of the moment, they got to make that decision. John Hannigan, Don didn't include the backswing in his description of a volley. Is it consistent with the definition of a serve? Good question. I meant to bring up that point earlier. The service motion is defined, the forward or backward motion. So that does mention the words forward or backward. When we talk about the non-volley zone, the act of volleying, okay? The act of volleying is described as, in 9B1, the swing, the follow-through, and the momentum. So what's the swing? I have heard some refs, well, a couple, say that, well, the swing is, I'll use my arm here, the swing is only when they come up and start to move forward. Well, the rule book doesn't say the forward part of the swing, okay? It says the swing. So like I did earlier, if I'm standing there, where's my paddle? If I'm standing there, okay, and I'm still, the minute I do this, the minute I move that paddle to come back and swing, to me, that's part of the swing. It could be circular, the overhead, the overhead where you just hit the ball, because the rule in non-volley zone faults doesn't mention forward part of the swing specifically. It just says swing. So I would say the moment you move that arm, you have started your swing towards the volley motion. Let's see. K-May, but it looks like he lifts his other hand and paddle. Then slight hesitation before the swing start. That could be, boy, that's interesting. You lift it up off the ground and then you pause and then you start your swing. I mean, that's a good point. When did it start? This first time? Or since you've stopped your motion. Now does the swing start when you move again? Those are all very good points. Again, hard to judge that in real time, but we all agree with this, all right? Again, if that paddle scrapes the zone during the motion swing, that's a span of time that qualifies for your paddle has touched during, even though it's 50 milliseconds, during the volley swing, that's a fault. I still kind of contend if you lift up, then the minute your swing starts right here is the very same minute you are not touching the zone. So I would look to not call a fault in that way because I think the rules give me a basis to not call it. So, okay. Anything else here? Okay. I'm scrolling down. I think, okay, Deke Marshall, what basic rules do you find beginners have the most trouble with? Wow. Beginners. I would say two areas to answer that question. They are kind of confused on what questions they can ask of the ref. Okay. Let me take a drink. Kind of confused on that. In Mesa, we had a high-level tennis player, okay, come over. His very first tournament, all right? Great tennis player and phenomenal pickleball player for his first tournament. He entered in the 5-0 division. But there were several issues where he didn't realize. He came to me and talked to me as the head ref, said his ref, he would answer some questions and he wouldn't answer other questions he said, look, this is my first tournament. We're here and have a good time. I said, well, I understand that, but there are definite things that the ref can answer and not answer, and that's specifically given. Some refs might go, well, why don't you just tell them that? Well, that's coaching, and you're giving one team an unfair advantage. So I would say the questions that you can ask about serve and position, like, for example, let's say a person's about to serve, but they're in the wrong position. And they say, ref, am I the correct server? The ref can say, yes, you are. And bam, they serve, and then you call a fault. And then you go, wait, you said I was the correct server. I say, yes, you are, but you're in the wrong position. My wife just, okay. Okay, two more things from Scott. My wife just handed me a note. So I would say that, the serve issue, question they can't ask. And then secondly, non-volley zone infractions. Here's a phrase I like to use. If I'm going to volley a ball, all right, and I bump my partner during the act of volleying, which is that swing, if I bump them, if I touch them, think of it this way. The two have become one, all right? The two have become one. Now consider them as one person. So let's say I go to swing, I bump my partner, I continue to volley the ball for a good shot, but my partner takes a step or two and stumbles into the zone because I bumped them. If I bump them during that act of volleying, we now have become one person effectively. So it's the same as if I went into the zone. Okay, that's a big issue. Think of this way: when you touch during the act of volleying, the two become one. So if my partner goes in, I have touched the zone as well. That's the big area for, I think, beginning rules players. Okay. Oh, 2020 rule changes. I want to tell you where you can go and get these rules that we're talking about. Go to the usapa.org website. Those tabs along the top, ones like rules and referees. Click down that tab. You'll see, I think it says 2020 rules, and click on that tab. There's a whole page of the 2020 rule book. You have to be a member to access the referee handbook. But also, real importantly, I think, is the 2020 change document. This year was the first year that I know of. The USAPA, along with rule changes, put out a big, lengthy document as to why the rules were changed. Because I've seen this so many times on social media, you all, that somebody said, well, if we knew the intent behind the rule change, or this would help. Well, this year they gave the reason for the rule changes. And on many of the more detailed rule changes, they give 1 or 2 or 3 scenarios of how to apply it. So that 2020 change document is very helpful and very handy. And I think a big reason why there's been, in my opinion, not as many rules questions this year, because they finally told us, here's why we changed it, here's the change, here's why we changed it, here's how you apply it. So the usapa.org can get you all these documents. Download them on your phone. That way you can look at them when you're driving. Sorry, don't do that. That way you can look at them and always have them at your beck and call. Okay, Teresa. Wow, what a good question here. In serving, somewhere is it written that practice swings are allowed? Please expound. Yes, there are in the ref handbook. The past 2 years, they've come out with, used to you could cock your arm to the back. Okay, and now it says a practice swing is allowed. A practice swing. Well, I just don't know if I want to get into this sticky situation right now, but I'll say it. I've got no reason to not. Let's say my partner always, the opponents, let's say, I'll use her name, Marnay Smith, okay? She always, I'm going to back up, she always does this. She cocks her arm back, the ref calls a score, then she serves, okay? Let's say that I don't do that. And let's say that this happened to me. How many of you had the service yips where you just lose your serve? Okay, so let's say during a match, I used to serve forehand, right? Just a bowling kind of serve. And I was real good with it, pretty accurate. But I started to lose it, all right? So what if that happens during a match? Let's say it's game 2, all right? And the ball comes back over to me. Let's say I hadn't done what Marnay, did every time. She'd cock it and then serve, all right? But let's say I'm saying to myself, come on, Don, this is not that hard. Just take your arm and let's say I do that. I don't serve. Don, this is not hard. Just that's all you got to do. I'm just practicing my arm motion, okay? How do I know the difference? How do I know the difference if that's a practice swing or a service motion? Now, here's where I debate a lot of my good ref friends with, and so for me, have decided on this. Here's one way I know for sure that you started your service motion before I finished calling the score, okay? If you serve the ball, if you hit the ball, which if you notice in the definitions and also in chapter 4, it says the service motion starts with the movement of the arm to contact the ball. And I think in chapter 4, it says the service motion is forward or backward swing to hit the ball or to serve the ball. Well, here for me, I know this much. If you move your arm back and forth and hit the ball, then I know that that's a service motion and you've started it before I finished calling the score, and that's a fault. But if you just move your arm like I did, okay, move your arm back and forth and don't hit the ball, I'm not sure. This is very important. I'm not sure if you were starting your service motion or if you just did a practice swing. So if I'm not sure you committed a fault, I'm not going to call a fault. Now, this might get me kicked out of the USAPA or whatever, but put it this way. I'm 100% sure if you move your arm and hit the ball, that's the definition of the service motion. And if you do that before I finish calling the score, that's a fault. But if you just move your arm and don't hit the ball, you could have been doing a practice swing. And if I'm not 100% sure that you did your service motion, I won't call a fault on you. That's me. That's what I would do. Again, I'm not looking to try and call a fault. Now, if you step on the NVZ 1/8 of an inch, I have to call a fault. But if I'm not sure you started your service motion because you didn't hit the ball, I won't call a fault on you. That's just me. Okay. Don, Scott, Don, here's your chance to give the side of the story with that controversial video I post every year. And I kind of wonder why he does that. Just real quick, there was a play where I'm right in line with the net, and Scott is very quick and athletic. With God and my son in heaven, this is, I'm telling you the honest truth here, folks. He jumped an Ernie to hit an Ernie, and part of his leg, whether it be foot, ankle, calf, I think at one mind in my mind, heck, even his thigh had crossed, but it was very blatant to me that his leg had crossed, and I was right in line with the net. Okay, I'm right in line with the net. His leg crossed, and then he hits the ball. And I learned this in baseball. They said, when you make a close play at first, replay it in your head and then make the call. That's been a holdover in pickleball. Sometimes I will see something happen. I will replay it in my head to make sure, and then I'll make the call. Okay. With this one, and I think I've only told him this privately, but here's the thing. When his leg crossed, man, he hit the ball. I think he hit a winner. Okay. I replayed it in my head because I didn't want to call it on him. I didn't want to call it. Maybe people are going to jump on me for admitting that. I replayed it in my head, I think in my mind, to try and find a way that maybe I missed it and I wouldn't have to call it. So I didn't want to call it on him. So I replayed it, and that's not, I don't mean bias. I didn't want to call it. But it was so obvious in my mind that I replayed it in my head, and when the replay in my head still said, there's no way he didn't commit that fault, then I had to call the fault. And I can see I can see his point. It upset him that, why didn't you call it the moment it happened? I see that point. I think he made a very good point. There was another camera angle at the very back corner of the court, which, boy, I would have given my eye tooth if we would have had a camera straight on that net, because I think everyone would see that I probably got that one right. But I did pause. I replayed it in my head because I didn't want to call it on him, but I had to, because 2 times in my mind, yeah, it was he definitely crossed. Anyway, that's the controversial one. Change document. Okay. What's the craziest thing you've witnessed in pickleball, whether being a referee or a player? Oh wow. Oh wow. Crazy. Oh yeah. I'm just going to be transparent here, folks, and I'll tell you where I messed up. There was a match in St. Louis last year, because I'm real big on, don't be the person to stop play, okay? Don't be the person to stop play. If you stop play, you're on the hot seat. You got to justify why you did it. So I called the score, and the rule changed because of it this year. This was last year. I called the score. I'm going to back up. I called the score. Do this. All right, call the score. Start my 10-second count. A female player, the server, looks and says, "Hey ref, the ball is cracked," and she throws it to me. Okay, I catch it because I've never had that happen before, and I start looking at the ball, and I don't see a crack, and I start thinking, "Oh crap, I've just inserted myself in this play." Because she threw me the ball, and the 10-second count, it had to be up to 7 or 8 by then. The receiving team starts walking towards me and says, I can't believe I'm telling this on the internet, and says, "Hey ref, If that ball's not cracked, she's gone past her 10 seconds. Well, folks, I felt like I had done something wrong by catching the ball because I'd never been in that situation, and there's nothing in the referee handbook that tells us what to do. So I start to get nervous. I drop the ball and step on it and go, yeah, it's cracked. And I call for a replay. So I know that probably some of you are wanting to ban me from being a referee, but that's what I did. That's probably the craziest thing I've ever seen happen to me in pickleball. But now there's a new rule because of that this year, and gives us guidelines on what to do. So, okay, I don't want to belabor this or go on and on. Let's see. Practice swings. Oh, okay. Teresa, another one. If I start a practice swing and the ref begins calling the score in the midst of my practice swing, can a fault be called? Well, wow. Can it? Sure. Some refs are going to say that you had started your service motion before they had finished calling the score. So what I would do as a ref, okay, let me say this. Tyson McGuffin has a very pronounced, he does that, he'll swing his arm around and he stops at the bottom and then he serves, okay? Everybody knows he does it, and that's his normal thing. I don't ever want to get in a sticky situation of having the opponent say, hey, ref, you were calling the score and Tyson was starting his service motion. So I wait for Tyson to do that little circular setup, okay? Now, he never takes a long time. We're not delaying the pace of the game. So I try to look for ways not to call it. So I intentionally just wait till he does his little setup. But even if I did call a score and he happened to start his setup, I would say, no, he stopped. He stopped at the bottom. That's his setup routine, just like Marnay when she kicks her arm back, okay? I'm not looking to call, like I said, a service motion fault, and the only way I'm 100% sure is if you do hit the ball. But can some refs call it? Yes, and they do. I just happen to, I want to be 100% sure, and the only way I know is if you hit the ball. Otherwise, you could have been you could have been doing a practice swing. And again, what about me? What about in the second game where I start to lose my serve, and I'm just telling myself, Don, come on, this is easy. Just forward and backward. That's all you got to do. I was really doing a practice swing. But I think a lot of refs would call a fault on me when I would say, well, hey, she moves her arm all the time. Why can't I move my arm to do a practice swing? So, yeah, that's a little sticky one there. Okay, if that is it, I don't want to belabor the point or talk. Basic rules, let me just go back there a little bit more. Skip Sorich. I do want to say, if you came to that summit last week with CJ Johnson, we did talk about the ball going over the net, hitting the net, and going over and hitting the horizontal bar. And I said anytime the ball hits the net and goes over the net, hits the bar, it's a replay. Well, except on the serve, okay? The serve has to have enough oomph to make it all the way into the service court to be a let. So other than on the serve, if on the serve the ball hits the net, goes over, hits the bar, that's a fault. Because the serve has to have enough, as I like to call it, oomph to hit the net and at least make it into the service court to be a let, okay? So, but other than on the serve, anytime that ball goes over the net, hits the bar or center base or gets caught in the net in the bar, whether it hits the ground before or not, you could have this happen. A ball goes, let's say, hits the net, or say it's a high lob over the net, bounces in the zone, and when it comes back up, it hits that horizontal bar. That's a replay as well. Why? Because that horizontal bar has interfered with that opponent's ability to play the ball. Now, I agree, it's a very low percentage, but still yet, the same issue as the ball going over the net and hitting the horizontal bar. Even if it bounces on the ground and bounces back up and hits the horizontal bar, same issue. The bar interfered with the ability. It's a replay, other than the serve. Okay, let's see. I don't want to just talk just for talking's sake. So, okay. I think that's it. Oh, okay. One last one. Don, can you discuss the moment you realized you were going to be a better referee versus a goal to be a 5-0 player? Yeah, as soon as I saw pros play. As soon as I saw pros play, I think it was Grand Canyon games in Arizona. Of course, I live in Nashville, here in the West, we don't have as many tournaments or whatever. So I flew out to Arizona, Grand Canyon Games 2016, I believe. Saw real 5-0 pros play, and I thought, okay, there's no way I'm ever going to be a 5-0, but I can be a 5-0 ref. Okay, I love it with a passion. I want to bring consistency for the players. Players deserve consistency. Okay. With that said, okay, I think we are good. Well, okay, one more. Sorry, Teresa. How quickly must a player appeal to a ref for a call? Well, that's one question. Can they hit 2 or 3 shots and then ask a ref if their opponent's shot on the sideline was out? Okay, that's an easy one to answer. In 2018, before 2018, there was this in-rally appeal where, let's say during a rally, I think a ball was out, but I played it, but you could raise your hand and supposedly come back to that point in time after the rally was over and say, hey, remember that shot that was back here where I ran wide? Was that in or out? Well, I'm glad they removed that. I'm totally glad they removed that. Now it's basically this. If you think the ball's out, then call it out. It's that simple. Okay. You're also allowed to, once it bounces, hit the ball, or even on the volley, you can, once it bounces, if you think it's out of, safety, you can go ahead and hit the ball to try and return it. But if you think it's out, call it out. That stops the play. There is no, after the rally's over, going back and saying, hey, ref, basically at some prior point in the rally, I want to appeal that ball that was close to the sideline. We can't do that because that opens up a total, well, how about that call? Well, how about this call? If you think the ball's out, call it out. Now, the other team can appeal, and if the ref sees it, they can overrule. But we can't back up during a rally and appeal something that we think happened. And I'm glad they took that out because I think it's prime for arguments, Okay, and how quickly must a player appeal to a ref for a call? Going by memory here, but you can appeal a line call made by the opponents up until the ref starts to call the score for the next rally. So you do have some time, but yes, you can appeal a call up until the ref starts to call the score. Because, think about it. If the ref's writing on a score sheet and you're talking with your partner and you both say, I really think that ball was out. Yeah, they're good players and I like their integrity, but I really think let's ask the ref. If it's before they start to call score, you can ask the ref up to that point. Okay. Oh boy. Please discuss what someone has to do if they want to become a certified referee like yourself. Also talk about how far the referee organization has come in just the last 2 to 3 years. I will say this. I think Mark Pfeiffer has done a tremendous job in his role as head referee in making things better organized, getting people involved. I think he's done a tremendous job. I think this year's the rule book being put out on time and the handbook, the change document, I think he's done a great job. Basically, to become a certified ref, go to the USAPA.org website, and in those tabs, it will tell you how to become to. But basically, I'll be honest with you, I haven't been there in a while because I don't need to get certified anymore, but I know there's a fee involved. I think it's $95. You have to ref some matches, okay? You need to take a training course. There is a PowerPoint training that you can download and teach. Then you have to be assessed like level 1, level 2. It's a criteria. And then you have to go for your ATS. That's where it's almost like you're being evaluated. And then if you're a mentor, you're assigned a mentor. If your mentor says, yes, you've passed the ATS, they can now say you're ready to go be officially evaluated. So to make a long building block is fee, application process, ref some matches, be assessed, level 1, level 2, have your ATS, and then the final step is your evaluation. But that's the basic process. I think it's good. I think it's very good. I think I was proud, and I'm very proud of my USAPA certified ref shirt. I had to work hard at it. and I think it denotes a level of, extra effort, and I think it's very good. So, how far it's come in just the last 2 or 3 years, leaps and bounds. I think leaps and bounds with new leadership at the helm and getting answers quickly, getting responses quickly. I think it's been very good. Okay. Yeah, that's right, Pam. The fee is assessed if you want to become certified. That's true. If you want to become level 1, level 2, that's just normal. But the fee is assessed if you want to become certified. And I think it's $95. I think you get 2 shirts with that and your lanyard and your credentials. But some people going through that process are probably better on top of that than me. So, okay. All right. I don't want to keep dragging on. You know how a preacher will say, and in closing, and it's never a closing. So that's it. I'm going to end this session. Thank you all. I do want to say, if you friend me on Facebook, I love talking about rules. Again, I won't lead you astray. This thing today about the paddle touch leaving the ground, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. And I can see the other side of that debate. But in my opinion, I've got enough basis to not call a fault when that situation happens. Although if you drag it, yes, that's a fault 100% per 9B2. So, okay. Love talking rules anytime. Call me, text me, Facebook friend me. Email is donstanley@usapa.org. Thank you all for your time, and thank you, Scott. I'm honored. Thank you for letting me talk about this 2-ref system. It's a big passion of mine. Thank you guys very much. Take care. Okay, stop. How do I stop? Boom. Goodbye. Parting is such sweet sorrow.